Good morning. Welcome to Second Chances Mindset. We're going to enjoy this beautiful weather I have in Florida, and we're going to add to our Second Chances series. Today, the topic's going to be young adult children. Now, that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people as far as your relationship with your young adult children. Some people rarely see them because they're away at college or they live outside of state. Others, they're living at home, and a lot of times they're living at home much longer than they used to because, well, everything costs more right now. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you navigate that, because it honestly isn't easy. And most of the things that you find online focus on young children, having young children at home, parenting young children, because, hey, once they're adults, well, they're on their own and your job is done, right? Just wipe your hands of it. Well, it's not quite that easy. For quite a number of people, the hardest years are when their kids are young adults. And by that age period, I'm referring to 18 to 25-year-olds. I feel like that is a really tough time in life. It can be a really exciting time because there's a lot of changes during that time, but it's also a time filled with a lot of angst and stress because you are making all those changes in your life. And as the parents, it can be stressful because you're trying to navigate that period of time where you told your children everything to do and how to do it, to a time where they're thinking on their own and doing things the way they want to do them, and the two may not get along. So am I right? Yes. So this is a great thing to talk about, and you can have a second chance with this. If you're having difficulties with this period of life where your kids are now young adults, then stay tuned, because we are going to talk about second chances with adult children and how you can get through that period of time. As I said, there's so much focus on books and parenting and online about the young years and even the teenage years. And a lot of people put such a negative focus on the teenage years. And I'm not saying they're not without difficulties and troubles, but I think the teenage years can be some of the very, very best. So if you're there now and you're enjoying your teen, go for it, because it is just a really great time. They usually are really flourishing, and they have lots of opportunities in school and in community, and in maybe they're in church or in clubs. There's a lot of ways that teens have that they can really excel, because people are very interested in helping teens to excel. Once you get to adulthood, you're pretty much on your own, right? They're not so interested in teaching you to excel anymore. You're supposed to do it on your own. Now, some of the things I'm going to talk about, you will agree with and some you won't. And that's okay. I mean, we don't all have to agree. But these are some things that going through raising 4 children that I've learned along the way. I'm simply sharing what worked for us. Some of it was trial and error. A lot of it's trial and error, isn't it? A lot of it does depend on the personality of that child as well. How you treat one, I always thought, oh, you treat them all the same, but that's not really the case because personalities are so different. Let's first talk about why it's so difficult during that period of life to raise children. Well, they're kind of raised already, right? You've been guiding them and telling them ways of doing things, and for the most part they listen, sometimes not as willingly. But at this point, in that 18 to 25 range, your voice needs to be less. They really are wanting to make their own decisions, and they are figuring it out on their own as far as what they believe, why they believe it. They're starting to see other people that do things in different ways than maybe they were raised. And now they're thinking, well, maybe that's how I want to act, or maybe that's what I want to do. And so I think it's a very confusing time of life as well. And it's confusing for parents too. Of course, you can't talk about this period of life without talking about college. Since so many kids go away to college, it's really changed the way this period of young adulthood looks. And in a lot of ways, I don't think it's changed for the better, and that is my opinion. You can agree or disagree. Let's talk about regression. I think there's a period of regression that goes on. Again, I feel like teens in high school, a lot of times they're really go-getters. They're working towards athletic goals and academic goals, and maybe they have a job and they're doing a lot in their job and working hard. And they get to college, and I feel like a lot of times it's this regrouping of, who am I? What am I doing here? And just kind of figuring out this whole stage of their life separate from their parents. But the reason I use the word regression is because many times parents are footing the bill, or at least a lot of the bill, and the kids might be working a part-time job, but that's just for fun money, right? They're going on spring break to Cancun or whatever, and so they don't really have the responsibility of adulthood. They don't have the bills, they don't have the problems with things breaking, and what am I going to have to eat? Because a lot of times they have a meal plan, or they have a microwave and they'll just put something in that, and that's good enough. And it's a very free time of life for them. And I'm not saying that that's all bad, but I don't know how much good it's actually done as far as helping kids to prepare for adulthood. And I think that's why you hear so much of this, oh, I'm not adulting today, or I can't do adulting. When adulting became a verb, I was like, wow, where did that come from? And I think it's just because it's a real switch. All of a sudden, parents are like, oh, well, no, now you're an adult. I'm not paying for this. I'm not paying for that. You're out of college. Parents are breathing a sigh of relief because now they are like, okay, all this time I've been paying for this college and paying for my child to have this experience, and now they're done, and okay, get a job and get an apartment and work 9 to 5 when you've never been used to that, or maybe you're working 9 to 7 because a lot of companies anymore expect you to stay after 5. And then go home and make dinner and buy groceries and make sure you have food in the house and pay your bills on time. Maybe the only thing they ever paid was a cell phone, and that came directly out of their banking account, so they never had to think of it. And now setting all these things up and getting health care and all of this is huge. It's huge to do at one time, especially when they have no experience in doing any of these things. No wonder they don't want to adult. I mean, a lot of what I see with college is it's an extension of high school, but it's better because they're living away from their parents, and now they don't have to answer to anybody, and they can do what they want, but they don't have the responsibility of payments. They don't have the responsibility of utilities and rent and all those things, because most of it, if not all of it, is covered by their parents or is put onto a loan that they're not even thinking about yet. It's like, oh, someday it'll happen, and they're told that they're going to be making $80,000 to $100,000 a year, or maybe more, and so it'll be so easy to pay that loan off. Well, that's not really the reality for many coming out of college. And they also find out that they don't like working 10, 12-hour days. Now, many people won't agree with me on this, and that's okay. That is fine. I'm just seeing a lot of this going on, and it does seem like there's a large majority that really feel lost after college and feel that they don't quite know how to take the next steps after college. I just wonder if there isn't a better way. Now, if you still have teenagers, I think going back to like when they're 16, that's about a really good time to start making changes and to start helping them see what life will look like for them on their own. Make it clear to them. Don't expect them just to, get it. and don't expect them to take the initiative. You're going to have to do that. I think things have changed quite a bit in how people even perceive things. Back in the day, I just feel like, I wanted to get a job. I wanted to work. I wanted to leave my parents' house. I wanted to have a place of my own, a family of my own. And I'm not so sure that's really the mindset anymore. And so I think it's a good thing to kind of help them through that period. Again, if you can start at 16, I think that's the best. I really am a strong advocate in kids working at 16. Again, not everybody is, but I think it's important that they do and that they start paying their way so that they understand that this is what it's going to be in the future. It's not going to be that mommy and daddy are going to pay for everything and I'll live here forever with them, but yet do what I want. Again, this is really tough stuff. I'm not minimizing it at all. It's a process, and give yourself some grace in that process. So when they're 16, you start them with a job. They're paying for their cell phone, they're paying for their car insurance, they're paying for going out with friends, they're paying for hygiene products. I also think they should pay for if they're going on, a band trip with school, or they're going on missions trips with youth group at church or something like that. They need to be paying for those things as well. This helps them to understand money a little bit better than they might have up to this point. They also need to be saving for college at 16, or they need to be saving for, if they're not going to college, for trade school or whatever they're going to be doing after high school. Now, I am an advocate of helping your child get their first car. I'm not an advocate of paying for it completely, but I do think you need to help them with that. Number one, it'll make your life a lot easier if they have their own car to get to work after school and on weekends, and you're not having to drive them all over the place. Expect to do that in the beginning, but then once they have their car, they'll be able to do that. However, they're not going to have the money in the beginning to get that car, right? So ideally, they work for a while first, they have enough money to at least start looking, and then again, you have a conversation about how much you're willing to put towards the car. Maybe they have to make payments to you for a portion of it. Maybe that's how you do it. But I do think that it's important for parents to help them get that car so that they can be going to a job. These teen years are also the time, of course, to be talking about college, talking about trade school, talking about working after high school or a gap year or going abroad. All of these things, kids have so many choices now, and that's wonderful, but it's overwhelming. And to have some clear direction so they know what they need to save and which way they're going, it's really a really nice thing to have at this point in their life. So you want to be talking about those things with them. And in those conversations, you want to make sure that they understand if they're paying for college, if you're paying for it, if it's going to be a collaboration. they need to have those clear boundaries already. I'm a big advocate for the community college. Kids can do so well in the community college, and they can come out with an associate's and get a really good job. My son has a really good job in hospitality. He is a manager in the resorts and for his company, and it's really a great opportunity for him. And he was not somebody who wanted to spend 4 years in college, and so far he really hasn't had to do that. It was 2 years, got the associate, but even in that period of time he was doing an internship, he was doing his college online, and that then acted as a segue into his internship and into his job that he has currently. Community college also saves so much money, so much money. Now, a lot of parents just want to, send the kid away to college because they want them out of the house. I do understand that. I understand it. Some think it's very good for them to be away from home, and I understand that as well. There are pros and cons to all of this. You have to do what is right for you and for your child. But I do think community college is worth a second look. I think living at home, you're able to walk them through steps towards adulthood, and it's a more seamless transition. I encourage parents to talk about trade school and the trades. There's such a need for people in the trades. And if you've had to call a plumber or electrician, you understand the wait time and how these are definitely necessary and well-paying jobs. I also am an advocate for children paying their own way to college and to trade schools. Again, you need to have that conversation with your children earlier on rather than later. But even if you have to change midway, that is okay too. Sometimes illness happens for the parents, and that happened in my case. And my parents said, hey, you're going to have to pay. And I was halfway through a semester at that point. And so that was a little bit of a jolt because I wasn't expecting it. It's far better if you can set clear boundaries and expectations sooner. But, sometimes it's unavoidable. Just wanted to give you this little bit of a break from heavy topics and enjoy the pretty sky, enjoy the palm trees. That sky against the palm trees is just really beautiful colors. I guess if you live here during the winter and this is what you're used to, then you just kind of don't see it anymore. But when you come from snowy, icy weather to this, wow, what a change. Another thing I suggest, before they turn 18, have a conversation about expenses. These are not easy, again, they're not easy conversations to have, but so necessary, otherwise you have troubles later on. And if you have a conversation before they're 18, you can set a clear expectation that when they're 18, they will start contributing towards household expenses. Now, this is not something that a lot of people do, but really, who gets to live without paying anything? So when they're 18, they're considered adults, they can vote, they can pay something towards household expenses. Now this next part is mostly if your children are living at home with you from the ages of 18 to 25-ish or beyond even. These are things that you're going to want to incorporate right at the beginning so that you don't end up carrying the load of young adults in your house. Don't expect them to come to you and offer to make dinner or to buy groceries or to pay the electric bill or to pay a monthly rent. That probably isn't going to happen. You need to establish that. And I usually have a conversation with them. They don't talk usually, they just sit there and they don't look very happy. But I'll have the conversation and then I will put it in writing so that we both remember what was said and what is expected and dollar amounts and those types of things. And then I give them a copy and I keep a copy. And that just helps, with understanding. So regardless of if they're going to college, trade school, or they're working, you're going to want them to be paying rent, to be buying their own food, to be making their own food. Like I said, the rent is the only thing that I would price differently if they're still paying for school and paying for trade school. And then in time, you're going to add utilities to their monthly payment. And I think at first it's okay not to do that, and you're paying the utilities yourself, and because you're using the utilities too, obviously. But in time, I think it's good to divide the utilities out amongst the amount of people living in the house, and then they pay their individual portion, and you would be paying, for you, your spouse, other dependent children, something like that. But again, it gives them the idea of, number one, that there are other payments besides just rent and food, and that secondly, how payments go up. If you're not paying for utilities, you don't realize how using extra electric raises your electric bill. And you don't realize how in the summer it's one price, and in the winter, because of that electric heat, it's a totally different price. So it's good for them to understand that, and they will be able to do that if you're helping them by letting them pay for some of the utilities. The next is about food. If they're just going in your cabinets and your fridge and buying or eating the things that you're buying, number one, that's frustrating, because then you go to make something and you're missing ingredients because they used them. And secondly, it's not helping them to become adults. So what I do is clear out some cabinets, clear off some shelves. I empty part of the refrigerator, I empty part of the freezer. Yes, it means that I have left space, but I give that space to them, and then they can buy their groceries, plan their meals, and they have space to put those things. And that's part of this, cooking their own meals and feeding themselves. I write a list out of very simple recipes that I have, and they know where the recipe book is, and I put that list on the fridge, and I never said anything to them. I just wrote at the top of it, easy to prepare meals, probably quick and easy to prepare meals, and put that on the fridge. And lo and behold, they started getting out the cookbook and they started making those meals. So I think they found it helpful, because I think that's one of the hardest things, is to know what to make besides a boxed meal. One other aspect is cleaning. And of course, you probably have different cleaning standards than they do. One of you may be messier than the other. And you have to kind of come to terms with that. And I feel that, their room at that point is their room, and it's up to them to keep it clean or to not. If it's not up to the standard that I wish it was, I don't say anything. That's hard to do. It really is hard to do, but I think it just causes more problems than it's worth to harp on a messy room. And I don't want to do that with someone in their young adulthood. I just don't think that is helpful to the parent-child relationship at all. Same goes with their bathroom. I don't clean their bathroom. I figure if it gets disgusting, well, then maybe they'll clean it. I generally, if you have a house where they have their own bathroom, that's probably the best. And then I just don't go in there, and that works out. That actually brings up a good topic about things like paper products, toilet paper, paper towels, and dish soap and dishwasher soap and things like that. There's certain things like dish soap I'll I'll buy those. Dishwasher soap, I'll buy those. But I'm not going in their bathroom and putting toilet paper in there. Because again, when you have your own place someday, an apartment, a house, nobody's putting the toilet paper in there for you. You have to do that. So that's what all of this is about. It's making a seamless transition to adulthood. Now, what to do if all of this makes you feel like a big meanie, or you feel like this is something you can't talk to your kids about? I think you have to really remind yourself that this is for their own good. This is for helping them to become self-sufficient adults. It doesn't just happen anymore in most cases. You have to instill those things and teach them. And so if they are getting this in baby steps, where they're still in the safety net of living at home, but they are learning to pay rent, they're learning to have utility payments and to see those payments go up and to make their own food and get their own groceries and meal plan and all of that, that is such a huge bonus to them when they do go out and live on their own. I hope that this inspires you to talk to your young adults and to set clear parameters. That's all this is. It's just clear parameters about who's paying for what and what type of expectations there are. Do it with love and do it with their well-being in mind, and continually point to that well-being when talking to them about it so that they understand this is about them and for them. This is not about you as the parent. I hope you'll give some of these things a try, and thank you for hanging out with me today. I'll see you next time. Bye. And now a bug on my nose.